732 AD, a moment in history when Europe's fate teetered on the edge. The armies of the Islamic Caliphate surged into the heart of France, threatening to reshape the continent forever. Standing in their way was Charles Martel, a determined Frankish leader with everything to lose. What happened on that cold October day at Tours? And how did it change the course of history? This is the story of the battle that saved Europe. The 7th and 8th centuries were transformative for the Islamic world. From a humble beginning in the Arabian Peninsula, the Umayyad Caliphate expanded at lightning speed. In less than a century, their banners flew from the Indus River in the east to the Iberian Peninsula in the west. Their armies, fueled by religious zeal and military prowess, were almost unstoppable. Their goal wasn't just conquest, it was domination. After consolidating their hold on Spain, the Caliphate eyed the wealthy lands beyond the Pyrenees Mountains. Europe lay divided, its kingdoms weakened and vulnerable. This made the region ripe for invasion. For many in Christendom, the advance was not merely a military threat, it was an existential crisis. Would the Christian identity of Europe survive? Charles Martel wasn't born a king. He was a mayor of the palace, a title that placed him as the de facto ruler of the Frankish kingdom. A shrewd strategist and ruthless leader, Charles had spent years consolidating power, defeating rival factions, and reforming the Frankish military. Martel understood the gravity of the Umayyad threat. He knew that if the Islamic forces succeeded, Europe would be forever changed. But Charles wasn't just fighting for political survival. He was defending his faith, his people, and a fragile way of life. The year was 732, and Abdul Rahman al-Ghafiqi, governor of Al-Andalus, led a formidable Islamic army into Frankish territory. His forces were battle-hardened, boasting elite cavalry and efficient logistics. They raided towns and villages, leaving destruction in their wake. The Franks, on the other hand, were primarily infantry, heavily armored and disciplined but slower than their swift opponents. As the Umayyads advanced, panic gripped the Frankish countryside. Charles Martel acted swiftly, gathering his forces and moving to intercept the invaders. The two armies met near Tours, a critical town that stood as the gateway to central France. Martel's strategy was simple but effective. He chose a narrow battlefield that limited the mobility of the Umayyad cavalry. His soldiers formed a dense shield wall, a tactic designed to absorb the impact of enemy charges. For 6 days, the two armies stared each other down, each waiting for the other to make the first move. The tension was palpable. When the battle finally began, it was a clash of titans. On October 10th, the Umayyad forces launched a full-scale assault. Their cavalry charged with unmatched ferocity, but the Frankish shield wall held firm. The battle was brutal, with soldiers fighting hand-to-hand in the mud and blood. The Frankish infantry, though outnumbered, displayed remarkable discipline. Their shield wall remained unbroken, frustrating the Umayyad forces. The tide began to shift when Frankish soldiers launched a surprise raid on the Umayyad camp, targeting their supplies and treasury. Thinking their wealth was at risk, many Umayyad soldiers abandoned the fight to protect their camp. This confusion proved disastrous. The Franks pressed their advantage, driving the Islamic forces into retreat. Abdul Rahman al-Ghafiqi was killed during the chaos, and the remaining Umayyad forces fled back across the Pyrenees. The Battle of Tours was a resounding victory for Charles Martel. It not only halted the Islamic advance into Europe, but also solidified Martel's reputation as a savior of Christendom. The significance of the Battle of Tours cannot be overstated. For centuries, it was hailed as the moment when Europe was saved from Islamic conquest. While modern historians debate its long-term impact, its symbolic importance remains undeniable. Charles Martel's victory paved the way for the Carolingian Empire, which would flourish under his grandson Charlemagne. The battle also marked the beginning of a cultural and military divide between Europe and the Islamic world, a divide that would shape history for centuries. The Battle of Tours teaches us many lessons: the importance of unity in the face of adversity, the power of strategy over brute force, and the fragile nature of history itself. What if the Franks had failed? Would Europe as we know it exist today? The Battle of Tours was more than just a military encounter. It was a crossroads of civilizations, a moment when the fate of a continent was decided on a single battlefield. The Battle of Tours reminds us that history is not inevitable. It is shaped by the courage of individuals, the decisions of leaders, and the resilience of people. In 732, Charles Martel and his men stood firm, and the course of history was forever changed. So this was the interesting and historical story episode for today. How was it? Did you like it or not? Share your thoughts with us in the comments, and forget not to subscribe the channel for more stories, and also like the video. Thank you for watching.